This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Join today. Service guarantees citizenship. See the galaxy of great movies and defend the Federation against the bugs of bad taste. This is a podcast of rare antiquities. I only have one rule. Everyone critiques, no one quits. I am your host, Geoff.
I choose to quit. I'm out of there. You are no longer welcome on this show.
You're going down Washout Lane. Recruit?
Yes.
10 lashes in the public square.
This is Harry, taking the lashes, as per usual.
As usual, like a man. We're back. It's a miracle.
We're back. He's black, and I don't know, what else did they say? In Lethal Weapon? He's mad. He's mad. We're back. He's black.
I'm mad. That's from Lethal Weapon, isn't it?
Yeah. Lethal Weapon 3, I think.
There's Mel Gibson for you. Get some guy's black.
Yeah, Danny Glover seemed to laugh at it, so he was amused. So,
well, it is a funny line. It's a pretty good line. He was so goddamn charismatic. It's hard to hate the man.
I hate nobody from those movies.
They're probably not making it on this show, but still like a little Lethal Weapon.
Kill for Mad Mel on this show.
Oh, my God.
I'll take any Mad Mel. You can be mad at me. That's okay. I'll take it and enjoy it.
I don't know where we got on the Mad Mel, but anyway, so today we're rolling up on the 20th anniversary this year of Starship Troopers, which is what we're taking a look at today.
20 years.
And
fuck.
Yeah, 20 years. 1997, Harry. What else happened in 1997 that you remember?
Oh, we known each other for that long? Fuck.
I was going to say, you and I met in 1997, so 20 years.
Face Off.
Face Off.
That was a glorious
great movie.
Epic movie.
It was a glorious epic. In fact, I was thinking back on 97, and I mean, there were some turds for sure, but you know, you got Face Off, you've got The Game. I mean, there were some pretty good movies in 1997, if I recall correctly.
That might be it.
Yeah, that might.
We have Batman and Robin?
Batman and Robin, yeah. That brings the average down.
Yes,
a little,
I know.
A wee bit, I suppose.
No, but the Star Wars special editions, that's the highlight.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Starship Troopers and, you know, what you remember from its release or leading up to its release in 97.
Yeah, again, as you touched upon, working the theater as a summer job as a student, glorious days. We saw a shit ton of movies. This was one of them. Can't recall if I just saw it on my own or if it was a screening, but I remember laughing through most of it and enjoying it, just like I do with most of Paul Verhoeven's flicks. I've owned this movie on DVD. Yeah, I watched it a few times since then, occasionally. And that's pretty much it. You know, every time I pop it in, I always remember how joyful it is. It's balls to the wall in one direction, which is usually how Paul Verhoeven goes, and he went for it. Whether he succeeds, we will talk about.
That's what the show's for, baby. You know, looking back on the release of the film, I remember seeing the trailer originally for Starship Troopers. And, you know, this was before we had the internet back in 1997, but you didn't really get a lot. Like now you can find out whatever, right, about every movie coming out. And it wasn't really like that 20 years ago. So
it was just the trailer. That was it.
It was just the trailer. Yeah. You had the publications if you wanted to read, but I didn't even know about the movie. It's just the trailer came on.
It looked like a serious movie, actually. It looked like a serious sci-fi. It looked like it was going to be Aliens. James Cameron's Aliens.
Yeah, exactly. And on a larger scale. In fact, I just YouTubed the original trailer. It's totally serious, totally straight. And that's exactly how I remembered it. You know, looking at this like, wow, it's like grand sci-fi war movie. Holy fuck, this is going to be amazing. And it is not the movie that they advertised in the trailer. I mean, all of those shots are in the movie, but that's not the movie. So
we should have known better too, knowing who the filmmaker was.
We should have. Yeah, exactly. But I think at that point, I'm just thinking like, I was thinking more Total Recall Paul Verhoeven as opposed to RoboCop Paul Verhoeven. I do remember having a heck of a time. I mean, being very surprised with the content of the movie, but like you, I laughed. I had a great time watching it, and I don't know that most people were on the same page as us.
Yeah, this definitely has wound up on more of the cult movie status. I can't recall. Maybe I guess you'll enlighten us how well it did in the box office.
We'll get to the trivia, but figure we'll just get into the synopsis here right away. Any other opening thoughts before we roll into Starship Troopers?
Only one. Name your favorite Verhoeven flick.
I think I'm going to have to say RoboCop.
I'm going Total Recall, 100%.
Yeah, no bad choice. Starship Troopers, Total Recall, RoboCop. I mean, you don't have a bad choice. Even Basic Instinct is a solid flick.
Yeah, Basic Instinct is okay.
Total Recall's got Arnie to push it over the top, though.
But even if Arnie wasn't in it, I think it would have been amazing. Arnie's icing on the cake.
Yeah, I still when he's fucking standing there holding Michael Ironside's arms. Like, see you at the party, Richter. One of the greatest scenes in cinematic history, right there.
Oh, yes.
Love that scene. Such a good movie.
Oh, that's great.
Total Recall,
that's one of Arnie's best. I consider it the voice.
Yeah.
So I love it. That guy's awesome.
Yeah. I gotta watch that after the show's over. It's
guy's a fucking movie. Asshole. You love Quaid.
Oh, man. Luke is talking.
Yeah. I got 5 kids to feed, it's great stuff, man. It's great stuff in this shit.
He was good, too. Such a good movie. Solid sci-fi flick, too, like storyline-wise. Very solid sci-fi flick. All right, let's do this. Starship Troopers. War. The invasion of Klendathu has begun. Those damn dirty bugs are about to be wiped clean from the face of the galaxy, according to newsreel footage. Thousands of mobile infantry soldiers have dropped into the middle of a war zone to destroy the arachnid threat once and for all. But as soon as the invasion has begun, soldiers are being ripped apart by giant insects, and the last thing we see is a young soldier falling at the hands of a bug before the newsfeed cuts out. 1 year earlier, that young soldier, Johnny Rico, daydreams in his social philosophy class. While his teacher, the rough-and-tumble amputee Mr. Raschak, tries to educate these vacuous young souls about the social fabric of their society. Remember that whole democracy thing? Yeah, turns out it wasn't such a great idea. And in order to avert chaos, the military took control, and it's been peace and harmony ever since. And so far, things are looking pretty good. Everyone is beautiful. I mean, really beautiful. The weather is nice, and everything is looking futuristic and shiny. Really a nice-looking place. As for Johnny Rico, life seems to be as good as it gets. He's dating Carmen, the most beautiful girl in school, gets to pal around with his best friend, psychic Carl, and the second most beautiful girl in school, Dizzy, is on deck in case things don't work out with Carmen. But things are all about to change. Carmen is going to volunteer for federal service as soon as high school is over. She wants to pilot spaceships. Rico, who's not so much for the math, probably isn't going to make pilot, but he wants to join up too, for honor and service, and, well, Carmen is really pretty. Rico tells his folks that he wants to be a citizen of the Federation, and he's going to volunteer for a 2-year term of service. But they're like, hey, no way. And Johnny's like, yeah. And they're like, fine. If you walk out that door, you're cut off. So Johnny leaves. He's cut off. Rico, Carmen, and Carl all head out to enlist. Carmen's math scores easily qualify her for pilot school, and Carl's psychic abilities mean he's headed for military intelligence. Rico, well, that chiseled jawline and perfect hair don't make up for much, and he's headed for the mobile infantry. They make a pact to always be friends, and the three go their separate ways. Johnny ends up at Camp Curry, a boot camp preparing all the dumb, beautiful teenagers for the meat grinder of interstellar combat. Johnny makes some new friends, like flat-top hair model Ace, big, beefy Breckenridge, and hey, look, there's an old friend from high school, Dizzy. Life at boot camp goes pretty well for Rico. He's a natural at doing flips and shit and shooting laser guns and looking really great while doing it. Meanwhile, Carmen is tearing up flight school. She's owning the place. She gets her first chance to pilot a Federation battlecruiser, and not only does she dominate that, she catches the eye of her flight instructor, dreamy, blue-eyed Xander. And all of a sudden, she doesn't have much time for Johnny anymore. She beams him a Dear John video from across the galaxy, but that's okay. Johnny has space lasers, and he's even squad leader now. In their first live fire exercise, Rico is going for the course time record, and everything's going fine until he tells Breckenridge to take his helmet off during a live fire exercise. So, yeah, Breckenridge catches a bullet in the face. Did I mention before about Johnny? Good-looking guy? Not so much for the brain sweat. His commanding officers don't run him out of town, but he decides it's time to head down Washout Lane anyway. The girl he joined up for dumped him. He got a guy killed. Yeah, it's just not for him anymore. But before Johnny can take the long walk home, something terrible happens. A meteorite flung from the far-off planet of Klendathu inside the arachnid quarantine zone has struck Earth and destroyed Buenos Aires, which just happens to be Johnny's hometown. Millions injured, millions more dead, including Johnny's family. Now so much for washing out. Before you know it, Johnny, Ace, Dizzy, and the gang are all geared up and getting deployed to Klendathu to destroy the bug menace once and for all. And this is about where we came in. The troopers have been deployed to the planet's surface, but instead of a bug hunt, they run into a coordinated military defense. Huge plasma-spewing creatures are shooting starships out of orbit, and 10-foot-tall razor blades on legs, and lots of legs, are picking apart the troopers by the dozens. Rico tries to take command of the squad to get everyone the hell out of there alive, and he manages to save a few, including his close buddies. But he falls in battle. And that's the end. All right. Well, maybe not. Johnny awakens inside a Bacta tank with a really nasty-looking wound on his leg. He's been listed as killed in action, but in a few more days, he'll be good to go. Rico, Ace, and Dizzy join up with a new unit. Wouldn't you know it? Their lieutenant is none other than the ruggedly handsome Mr. Razchak, sporting a sweet metal hand where his fleshy stump used to be, and he's here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. Unfortunately, it seems that they're all out of the bubblegum. Anyway, new plan. Instead of cleaning out the bug homeworld of Klendathu, the mission is to clear out all of the surrounding planets one at a time. First up, a planet that looks exactly like Klendathu. Another feature that makes it exactly like Klendathu, it's overrun with giant insects. Razchak's Roughnecks fare a bit better out of the gate, though. Their first day is fairly successful. They've cleaned out some bug holes, and only a few of them managed to get ripped to shreds or burned alive. The evening celebrations even take a turn for the romantic for Rico and Dizzy. It's the calm before the storm, though, as their mission takes them through a busted-up military base that's been overrun with bugs. The Roughnecks dig in as best as possible while awaiting extraction, and some of them do make it out. Lieutenant Razchak and Dizzy are not among them, however. During the funeral for the fallen Roughnecks, Rico and Carmen are finally reunited with Carl, who's looking badass in some slick neo-fascist military garb. New plan again. Theory is there's some smart brain bugs down on the planet, and they need to go get one, so they can get some bug brains. So they can figure out how the bugs think. They totally need some actual brains for that. So it's back down to the planet surface for Rico and what's left of the gang. No sooner than Rico's Roughnecks hit the surface as Carmen's starship gets shot out of orbit, though, and Rico diverts to try to rescue her. Luckily, she crash lands right at the location of the very brain bug they had been searching for. Rico and squad rescues Carmen, and they bug out of the bug hole and relay the brain bug's location to the other squads. The brain bug is captured, Rico, Carmen, and Carl wind up together again, and the galaxy is safe from the arachnid menace. At least for now. The end. So that's Starship Troopers, Harry. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, just off paper, it just sounds like a generic war movie. Everything is in context. The one thing I did disagree with, just in the way you worded it, is the beautiful Carmen. I was not interested in the beautiful Carmen. I was interested in the beautiful Dizzy. She made me dizzy.
Yeah, I was a Dizzy man myself.
Yeah, you were a Dizzy man?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the red hair. It's the curly red hair. And the rest of her.
Yeah, gorgeous lady.
But, in all fairness, Denise Richards, not a lot broken.
No.
One thing that he definitely did do on purpose is find they did want really young actors for the role because they're supposed to be teenagers, but they really wanted the youth to come out. Essentially, as part of the satire, they're supposed to be beautiful but totally empty kids who are going away to get reprogrammed by the military. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that worked pretty well. So.
Oh yeah, that 100% worked well with all of them. Except for Carl, because he's the only one who's really thinking.
True.
I guess that's why they got Doogie Howser himself to play that role.
What's interesting is, if you take a look at it, when you use young actors, they tend not to be too experienced. So, Denise Richards, what's his name here? Casper Van Dien. Casper. Nice name, Casper. But they didn't have a lot of experience, right? Their performances are a little wooden, but Neil Patrick Harris had a fair amount of acting experience at this point. So, he is supposed to be the smart guy, but he puts in he's a little bit more believable. But anyway, so I'm going to hit you with some trivia, and then we'll segue from the trivia into another piece that will help form the discussion here. So Starship Troopers was released on November 9th, 1997 on 2,971 screens. So it was definitely a wide release. Big budget of $105 million. At the time, that was pretty fat budget. It ended up domestic gross of $54.7 million. So it was a flop at the box office, unqualified flop.
See, that's interesting. Say if people, just like we talked about, you look at the trailer, this does not look like a satirical movie.
That's right.
It looks like, so if people are not interested in science fiction, and I think at the time there really wasn't a lot of sci-fi, like science fiction, even though Star Wars had the special editions around that time, I don't really think science fiction was around that much. It wasn't really in the pop culture zeitgeist at the time and people's mindset. So I think maybe people weren't gravitating towards a movie like this. But if they knew that this was a satirical movie, then maybe more people would have watched this. It's hard to say.
It's tough. It's hard to say because it's always hard to say when a movie's not really marketed as the movie that it is. It's marketed as something different. And
then maybe that's the problem. People thought it was a hardcore war movie, and they watched it and it's something a bit different. And then, bad word of mouth, maybe.
Yeah. I listened to a bit of an interview with the screenwriter, and, he was saying that we were kind of doing the two things. Like on the surface, you got this, big sci-fi action thing with, shooting insects in outer space. And, the movie is there for the people who would be excited about that. But you had the satire under the surface. And so that would be there for the people who'd be interested with that. And they obviously it missed. I'm surprised that the studio greenlit this and then didn't interfere. You and I were talking just before the show about how the Han Solo movie, the directors were turfed by the studio because it wasn't fitting the vision. If you take a look at a movie like this, where it doesn't fit into really any kind of predetermined set. It's a sci-fi, high concept, high budget satire. Wow, I'm surprised that it even got...
Hollywood's different now. Hollywood is different now.
It is.
Completely different. Not just because it's the superhero thing and they want franchise thing and the cookie cutter stuff, but back then... Verhoeven probably had a blank slate and said, okay, do what you need to do. We know you had success with RoboCop, Basic Instinct, Total Recall. He had other earlier successes overseas, I believe, as a Dutch filmmaker and stuff like that. And they just said, okay, do your thing. We trust you. And they're going after filmmakers. Hollywood today, not unless it's an indie film. If you're spending more than $50 million on a movie, it's got to fit a certain mold. The filmmakers do not have freedom to do what they want.
No, there's 3 guys in Hollywood who can write their own checks at this point and do what they want. I think Christopher Nolan's a guy right now, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Whether you like him or not, but he's the kind of guy who can kind of write his own check at this point, but it's really rare.
Yeah. But, I think studios were more interested in, people fulfilling their vision, right? Even if there's a risk. So I think Hollywood was taking more risks. This is a movie that is risky. So applause to the studio heads for greenlighting this and giving it its budget.
No, totally agree. So Starship Troopers is based on the novel Starship Troopers by Robert A. Heinlein, one of the kings of literary science fiction from the 20th century. Starship Troopers was originally published in 1959 and won the Hugo Award in 1960 for Best Sci-Fi Novel. So as part of my research into this, I looked up the Wikipedia entry on Heinlein and the novel Starship Troopers. And you could tell, you can only take anything on Wikipedia with many grains of salt. And I could tell that the last guy to edit the entry was not a fan of the film because it's well, the movie doesn't have anything to do with the book, just took a couple character names and that's pretty much it, which is not the case at all. So I read the novel some years ago. I was rooting around my house looking for the book in preparation for the show and couldn't find it. And, we've kind of put the episode off a little bit. The other day, we're going through the basement, getting rid of a bunch of junk because we're having a garage sale. And in the bottom of the storage unit that we've got, there's Starship Troopers, the novel. So I picked it up, read through most of it again. And it's interesting because I remembered it not being very similar to the film at all. And in fact, that's not the case. So the book is told first person from Johnny Rico's perspective. It's kind of reads like a war journal, if you will. And most of the main characters are there. Dizzy's there, albeit as a dude. Carmen's there. Carl's there. The general framework of the initial setup is there where, Rico kind of wants to follow Carmen and Carl off to the service in order to become a citizen and then, get enlisting in the mobile infantry and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of similarities in some of the events, but the novel is not a satire.
Yeah, I was just going to ask,
Yeah, it is straight. Heinlein, he served in the Navy, the Second World War, and it was his belief that civilians were kind of lazy, and as they had not earned their freedom, they were just being given it, that they didn't appreciate it and therefore didn't make the right decisions. And so he envisioned the future of this type of society where citizenship has to be earned through service to the government, to the country. There were non-combat roles in the novel. You don't really get that feeling so much in the movie, but very interesting take. That really helps put the satire of the film in perspective, because I kind of always wondered, well, what bug is up Paul Verhoeven's ass here that he needs to satirize Nazi Germany many decades in the past? So what is it that he feels he needs to satirize here? And it's right there. So we can talk about that more as we get in there. Again, so Paul Verhoeven from the Netherlands, he only has 5 sort of well-known Hollywood films, starting with RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, which are, as we talked about, some sci-fi classic. Well, Basic Instinct is not sci-fi, but some classics of
some people would think it's sci-fi.
Yeah, maybe so. Couple of turds in there, showgirls.
Was that between your legs?
And Hollow Man. You remember Hollow Man with the bacon?
Yes. Yeah, bacon's bacon. Who can forget?
Bacon's bacon. Cool effects in that movie, but not a good film.
It's got the shoe. I give it credit where credit is due.
Oh, that's right. It does have Elizabeth Shue. Forgot about that.
That's all I remember. For good reason.
Yeah, well, she was hands down the best. As much as I like Kevin Bacon, she is definitely the best part of that. Interesting note about Paul Verhoeven. He has degrees in physics and mathematics, so he is not a dummy, for sure. The film was written by Ed Neumeyer, who also wrote RoboCop. In fact, he wrote all 3 RoboCop films and a couple episodes of the TV series that came on afterwards. He also wrote all of the direct-to-video Starship Trooper sequels that came after
I've never seen any of the sequels, anything after this movie.
I didn't either. It spawned a very low-budget direct-to-video sequel, which didn't obviously feature any of the returning cast, just a total different story. Starship Troopers 3, Marauder, does feature the return to the franchise of Casper Van Dien. I believe it also stars Jolene Blalock from Star Trek Enterprise. And I just found out today that also on-demand animated 4th movie in the franchise is hitting this August, featuring the voices of Casper Van Dien and Dina Meyer, who played Dizzy.
Oh, it lives.
It lives. It lives. Yes, it lives. Wow. There was also a cartoon that came out I've never seen an episode of. So the franchise is still alive, albeit in much reduced form. So, yeah. So those are some tidbits there. All right, let's get into the analysis here. So we open on the propaganda film, which I thought was an interesting way to open the film there. We see the ranks of troops, just massive, massive rank of troops in this propaganda video. We get sort of a bit of a setting for the war against the bugs with the meteors being hurled towards Earth. And then we're right in the invasion on Klendathu, which I kind of thought was neat with the journalist there, the video, and boom, we see things are not going well. And then our hero all of a sudden looks like he's killed almost in the opening.
I love this opening sequence. It sets all the right tones. It gets you right into the movie. You already know right off the first beats here that it's going to be a bit satirical because of the journalist's presence there and the way he's talking and the propaganda that you're talking about. It has that feel. Then you also get the gore right off the bat. You got to look at what the bugs are, and I loved it. Great.
Yeah, I thought it was a ballsy way to open the movie. And you're right. You know exactly what you're getting now to the end. With that opening propaganda video, I mean, right there. It's laid bare for you right away. And that was a very bold way to open the movie, I thought. So that was great. We'll spend maybe a little bit of time here. So let's go to the classroom. So we flash back 1 year earlier. Johnny, who looks like the guy who was just off on the battlefield there, sitting in the classroom, basically passing notes to his girlfriend in a futuristic way. And we have Michael.
What's with those weird fucking tablets like they have there? He's drawing like lips and stuff like that. And it goes on her tablet.
It's a pretty shitty iPad that they've got there in 1997 in the future.
Yeah.
He did draw some pretty voluptuous lip. It looked like her on the screen there.
Yeah, I guess.
But you get an idea of how good at the schools Mr. Johnny Rico is in this scene here. So, but we also get Michael, the fucking Ironside. Love Michael Ironside. I mean,
yeah, he's a boss, man. That guy's a boss.
He is a boss, for sure.
I wish he had more roles. I know he's been around playing army generals and shit like that since this movie, but man, I wish there was more prime Michael Ironside in movies.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
he's kind of one note.
There's only so much. He's a little one note, but he plays that note brilliantly.
Yeah, he does.
He really does. He's so good as Michael Ironside. And honestly, if any human being ever looked like what his name is, it's Michael Ironside.
That's true. He's the Iron Man.
He is the Iron Man. He plays their instructor there, Mr. Razchak. And this is also where we get first inclination of the society that we live in. So I want to talk about this a little bit because this is pretty key to the underlying themes that go throughout the film here. So according to Mr. Razchak, the failure of democracy caused by social scientists brought the world to the brink of chaos, and then veterans, i.e. the military, took control and imposed the stability as the last generation since. So that's our society here. What are your initial thoughts on this society that we're seeing here?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a possible poke at what a possible future could be for the way we're trending as a species. Government and the military will just always maintain control Now I'm a bit not so sure if I got the message right, because if you're saying that the author had the idea that if people were not respecting what it meant for freedom, and they should be forced to do service in the military to earn their rights as a civilian. I'm not sure if this really... I look at it this way and I say Verhoeven's making fun of the fact, the way the military and the powers would think if they had that kind of power, they would force us all into service to earn our rights for freedom instead of us having those rights to begin with. So now I'm confused because I thought that's kind of what his point was, and that's the satire. But now I'm wondering if that was just already built into the story and that's, the author had the opposite viewpoint.
Yeah, and he was serious about it, and this exact scene, in fact, does appear very early on in the novel, which is that civilians are not forced into service. But if you want to exercise any political rights...
Yeah, and your right to be a free person, choose what you want to do.
Yeah, then you have to volunteer for service. But you can volunteer anyway.
You need Republic credits.
Republic credits are no good here. And the other interesting bit of conversation here, I thought as well, was when he says, when you vote, you're exercising political authority. And when you do that, you're using force, which is violence, which is the supreme authority from which all other authority derives. And then I think it was Dizzy who says, might have been Karma, but either way, somebody says, my mother always says violence never solves anything. And then he points out, so it was Dizzy who said that. And then he's like, oh, really? Oh, I wonder what the fathers of Hiroshima would have had to say about that. To which Carmen says they wouldn't have said anything because Hiroshima was destroyed. So he's saying, exactly. Like, violence never solves anything. No, it solved everything.
Yeah.
So again, then that's sort of the extra layer here where, authority by force is kind of the only solution, which is the society that they live in. And what's interesting is like these concepts are, I guess I would say these aren't the values that most of us would hold in the Western civilized world at this time or 20 years ago. But this society, as we move along here, starts to look pretty good. As we take a look around the classroom, everybody's really pretty. We move outside of the classroom.
Aren't they all white as well? I don't know if I got it.
They are not. I thought so at first, but as we kind of go, I don't know about in the classroom, but when we go to graduation and in the military, no, not everybody is white. I mean, our main cast is white for sure, but it's the 90s. So we can talk about the diversity as well because there's some interesting points there. So that's the basis of the society laid out for us right away, which I think was an effective way of giving us this world in a believable setting without, it's exposition without beating us over the head with it. Like you can buy it because of the setting, kind of buy it, right?
Yeah.
We get a little bit of high school life. We get the idea of, Dizzy being really into Johnny and, Carmen kind of being standoffish. And we get introduced to Carl, played by Neil Patrick Harris. Definitely comes off as a smart kid. And we find out that he's also psychic.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did they pretty much steal? Because the first time you really see Carl, he's trying to do like this psychic experiment with Rico. And I remembered laughing because to me that reminded me of Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah. Right from Ghostbusters.
Did you get that feeling?
I got that feeling. I wondered if that might not have been a standard, like Ghostbusters probably ripped it off from somewhere as well.
No, but it's just the way, I don't know, it's just the way that scene was played. Like,
well, maybe because he couldn't get, right?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he's in love with Rico.
Yeah, maybe he's in love with Rico. Yeah. I was just going to say, 7 o'clock?
Not that there's anything wrong with that, Neil.
No, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, anyway, I think this was before he was out, but that's okay too. We're just kind of getting, setting the stage with the relationships and world here. We get to the scene where they're dissecting the bug in the lab. And I actually like this scene here. They did a good job with props. Carapace of the bug seemed a little fake, but started pulling the intestines out and all of that.
I just love the practical effects, the bug and the slime and the gore. Oh, it was just great. And people were just puking and or Carmen pukes because it's not her thing. And it's a great scene, actually. I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good scene as well, because I liked how, nonchalant pretty much, most of them, especially Johnny, he's just like, yeah, here, hold this. Okay, it's hard. He's just pulling the fucking guts out of this thing. I thought that was a good scene, played for laughs. I had a good chuckle here. I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
But again, we're kind of just getting the stage set here for us and the relationships.
Before we move on, I just want to touch base on a couple of things about this high school life. I don't know if you were going to go there. One was the football game, but the other one is getting your test scores in public. On like the biggest fucking HD screen imaginable. It's like everyone's seeing your scores. Oh, that's pretty funny.
I thought it was pretty funny as well. That was played well. I wondered if maybe fuck it, that's what we do on the show is overanalyze everything, is if that's another piece of the society where all that stuff is public for some reason.
That's just it. You don't have a right to hide your grades or have anything private to yourself until you serve.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, man, maybe I'm overanalyzing, but let's talk about that fucking football game. Oh, man. I actually really like it, but it is so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I like the animosity between him and that flyboy. What's his name?
Yeah, Xander.
Xander. Oh, what a another fucking name, high school jock name, Xander. Oh, boy.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. It was fun to see them jostle, but man, the flips. And I think I remember on my first viewing, this was where I was starting to wonder, is this movie for me? I liked what I was getting up to here, but then the football game and all of its wackiness and the weirdo jumps and flips and the impossible moves, I was just wondering, oh boy, what is going on here? Might have gotten to something I don't know if I really like. I can laugh at it now, but I'm not the biggest fan of these scenes.
They might have gone a little too far here. It's kind of funny, but definitely goofy. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Unless in the future humans can physically do this, because it's another thing with that satire. Is he saying that we have messed around, maybe genetically we have messed around to perfect the human body? So people, everyone's athletic, everyone's beautiful, as you touched upon. Everybody can do such great things without even trying.
I do believe that there's a piece of that here. They did intend for part of that to be the case. Did you notice their headwear?
No.
They're Jofa hockey helmets.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they say Jofa right on them, man. They are Jofas.
Oh,
so
that's hilarious.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But what I did think was kind of neat here was, Rico being our hero of the film, but he is definitely the high school football jock who is so often now not the hero of films, where we're usually left to identify with the smarter guys and the nerds, the less popular guys. And that's Xander. Obviously he's very athletic and good looking in his own right, but he ends up being the smart guy. He goes to flight school and becomes a pilot. So he's kind of getting bullied in this game by Johnny. So Johnny's so there's a bit of a reversal there for our hero. Another little interesting tidbit of trivia. So Xander's played by Patrick Muldoon, and again, like everybody else in the cast, he's been in a lot of things, but sort of as a one-off. Pretty sure he was in Melrose Place for a little while. So the main cast and many of the extras spent 2 weeks at a real boot camp to learn, all of the military stuff that they would need for the scenes. Patrick Muldoon was intentionally left out of the boot camp in order to alienate him from the rest of the cast, from the Roughnecks.
Oh, really?
So that so they could feed that animosity on set.
That's cool. I like it when directors do that.
Yeah.
For the betterment of the movie. Yeah. Director, I would do that too.
Well, especially when you're doing that sort of thing. I mean, you're making a military movie and so much of the camaraderie comes from suffering through training. And then they're naturally have animosity towards any outsiders. I thought it works on screen. He only has a couple scenes with Rico and the rest of the Roughnecks, maybe a couple scenes, but I think it really played really well later as we go. Anyway, so the football game fun. So after that, Xander's flirting with his girlfriend a little bit, which sets the stage for some stuff later. But the good guys win the day, of course. And this is where we go back to Johnny's home here. He's getting dressed for graduation, and his parents find out he's thinking about volunteering for federal service. And I thought this was interesting as well. They are not into him volunteering for service. Not at all.
They're also well off. So they could say, you do what you can go on vacation. You can just be a rich fool's son, sit on a beach and earn 20%. And pretty much that's what he could do in Buenos Aires or anywhere he wanted to. Yeah,
that was interesting. Like, they're rich. They don't need to vote or whatever. Because they're rich, they got what they need.
It would have been cool. A nice little joke for Verhoeven, little homage. They could have said, well, you know what, son? If you really want to go to war, just go to recall.
Get your ass to Mars.
Yeah, get your ass to Mars. That would have been a nice little joke in there. They could have thrown that into one line. But anyway.
What's actually, recall would have been funny, but funny that you bring that up because as that scene plays out in the novel, it is Mars that they suggest he goes to for vacation.
Oh.
So we get to the dance and, Johnny tells the teacher that he's going for it. And there's an interesting line here where Mr. Raschek says, figuring things out for yourself is the only freedom anyone really has anymore. Use that freedom to make up your own mind. I thought that was a neat little line in it because, you get the feeling that they definitely don't have many freedoms at all in this world. Anyway, so down to when they're enlisting there. So they've got that huge group of them taking the oath of service. I thought the interesting piece after that, when they all go up to the recruiting sergeant and we know, where they're all going based on their test scores. So none of them could volunteer for the division they wanted to go. Their test scores dictated where they were going. I thought that was pretty neat. again, another sort of little look inside this world. And again, we keep getting these layers of what the society looks like. And these are things that, as we talked about before, that was not the movie that they were advertising, where they were going to take the time to give us these little details to build this world for us. And I really like this scene. We've got the sergeant, he's got a prosthetic hand. Both of his legs are gone above the knee, him being in the tree. I mean, I really like that scene there. I thought that was great.
Yeah, the imagery gave me everything.
Yeah, beat me though. And today, oh shit. That was pretty cool there. After they finish that, Carmen makes them take the vow that they'll always be friends. A little bit of foreshadowing for later. They will end up together, but friends, well, we'll see. Johnny heads home. He's cut off from his family now. He's gone, and he sees off Carmen. Carl's already gone, and Johnny is now on his own with only the clothes on his back with him. We get another little propaganda video in here with the soldiers showing the kids the guns.
That is classic Verhoeven right there.
Yeah, very much so. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, that's practically right out of RoboCop. Classic.
Much like RoboCop, yeah.
That was kind of funny. And then the commercial for the lethal injection, the death penalty for that killer.
Oh, yeah. Would you like to know more?
Yeah. Would you like to know more? Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah. Also very classic Verhoeven. So they wrap up the propaganda video with a piece from, they're not at war yet, but we get the look at the arachnid quarantine zone. So the tragedy on Dantana. And I thought it was, I don't know what he was doing here, but the video says something like, disregarding federal warnings, Mormon extremists established a fort inside the quarantine zone.
Mormon extremists.
Mormon
I love
extremists.
That. I love that. That's great. Well, I mean, that's a definite poke at what the actual society has become. If the Mormons are the extremists.
Yeah, good point. That's how far they're going. When the ultra-conservative Mormon sect is like, whoa, we're out of here.
Extreme, we're out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I don't know, because they're calling the Mormons extremists. So it's like, are the Mormons too extreme for this society? I don't know. But anyway, it was just a little beat there. I thought it was pretty funny. We get to the boot camp finally, and we see our first look at Sergeant Zim, who's their drill sergeant, played by Clancy Brown.
Yeah, he was one of the highlights of the film for sure.
Oh, I agree. I really like Clancy Brown. He's such a great character actor. He's been in so many things over the years, and he's got that great deep voice, that face. He's great. I like this opening scene here where he's giving everybody shit.
I think it's right off the bat where during his speech, one young lad or new recruit is starting to laugh, and then he makes him run, and then he orders somebody to chase him and keep whipping him as he's running. Oh man,
I love that. Was so fun.
And then he has these off comments too. I think it's later, like, you have failed, or I can't recall because I haven't seen the movie now in a couple of weeks, and I don't have my notes in front of me, but he has some doozy one-liners in this one.
Yeah, he has some good ones. We'll get to that. Yeah, there's a couple of good scenes. This one's funny. He fights the kid and just fucking breaks that kid's arm in half. It's like, you all right, kid? Like, yeah.
Then Dizzy fights him.
Yeah, Dizzy fights him, and he just chokes her out.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you caught this or not. So she shows up because she shows up late, and Johnny sees her and is like, fuck. Like, Dizzy's here. Like, shit. She's tagging along. And then, like, as he's choking her out, he kind of has a grin on his face. I'm like, well, that's exactly as he grinning at just now.
He wanted to be on his own and didn't want, his whole crew with him. So he's enjoying the fact that she's getting work because she probably just came there to be with him, right? And he knows that.
Yeah, it was a little creepy, but that's okay.
Yeah, you could take it in that context too. I didn't take it that way.
Well, like I say, as I read too much into it, but God damn it, that's what we do on the show. So I really loved our introduction to Ace, played by Jake Busey.
Is this with the hand?
That's later. This is I'm just talking about when they're in line to get food, and he's just got his big dumb smile and flat top haircut. I thought it was hilarious. He's just an idiot. We get a bit of a montage here, as you brought up with the hand. That comes right after. So they're all throwing knives. I really like this scene here where they're throwing knives. A little bit of trivia here. Jake Busey, so I was watching an interview with him, and he said, they're filming the scene, and he has to miss the target. He has to basically, you see in the scene that they captured, he throws a knife, and it hits a knife that's way off on the edge, and he keeps missing the target. But he said, for whatever reason, he couldn't miss. He was so good at hitting the target. He kept, hitting the bullseye with the knife. They had to keep practicing there. But yeah, so he questions, he's like, well, in a nuke fight, what's the good as a knife? All you got to do is push a button. And so he makes put his hand on the wall there and just fucking throws the knife right through his hand, pins it to the wall, and he's like, he can't push the button if you disable his hand. That was a good scene. I really like that.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I think that was the first legitimate laugh out loud moment, like I remember clearly in the theater. When I watched it for the first time, everybody was howling when that happened.
Yeah.
It was great.
Played well. I mean, you could see it coming a mile away, but such a good scene there. That was fantastic. And then we get an interesting one here. So we get to the shower scene. So big communal shower, co-ed, obviously. And I'm trying to remember what I thought of this at the time. I was a much younger guy back then, but I thought that this shower scene was really interesting. And I'll tell you why after, but I want to get your take on it first.
Well, I mean,
I know they're titties, Harry. Let's get past titties, okay?
that's all I got, man. I got nothing.
We're diving deep here, okay? Come on.
I got nothing else. That was the most important takeaway for me.
There was talking in this scene. I didn't even.
It's interesting. The only thing here is I don't know if I draw too much into this because you see other movies with military where there are co-ed, where they're talking about in the future, or you get the impression that it would be co-ed no matter what. Like nothing, there's no holes barred, there's no privacy, everyone's the same. I guess one can look at it in the sense that if they've evolved since then, mankind, women and men are equal no matter what. Is that a commentary that he's making here? Or, as you said, there are no rights. So you don't even have a right to, through gender, to be separate. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You could look at it in many different ways.
Yeah, I think you could. I think there's a little bit of both here. In the society, and especially their recruits, right? They're nobodies, so there is no right to privacy, there's no right to anything. But they also react to each other. It's not even a thing to them. Like nobody's nobody's ashamed of. No, not at all. There's no gender roles here at all. Like not guys and girls. They're just all the same grunts. And I thought that was interesting. And we'll talk a bit about that maybe at the end. I mean, just given the current political climate in the world right now, which is pretty fucking bananas, but I was reading an excerpt from the current Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. He used to be a conservative radio talk show host, sort of in the vein of Rush Limbaugh, but much more reserved. But he did go on a bit of a rant about women in the military and speaking about sexual assaults in the armed forces and things like that. It's like, well, you put women and men together, what do you expect to happen? You got all these young guys with testosterone and they're young, and you put women in front of them, they're going to be doing what they do. That was basically his view on the whole thing. So, the military tends to be much more conservative. So letting women into the military and then having them equal roles and things like that would not necessarily be a very conservative thing to do. But this society is a very right-wing type of society. I'm struggling to see if it is consistent or if it's just so far in the future and like you've erased all individuality. You're just people. You're not a guy and a girl. You're just people, but not from a positive Star Trek sort of perspective where you're people and it doesn't matter if you're a guy or girl, whereas it's like, we don't give a shit.
Captain Kirk would have loved that shower. He would have owned it.
Are you kidding? 9 girls would have been pregnant at the end of that scene if fucking William Shatner was even on set that day.
Yes.
Absolutely, for sure. I would have been pregnant and walking away if William Shatner was upset. Not to linger too long in the shower scene here. We did get some interesting insight into some of the characters, though. I mean, they're all basically extras with a couple of lines, but again, it's some more of that world building where they're asking everybody like, hey, why'd you join up?
No, I like that. You're right. Now that it's triggering my memory of the movie, there are other B players here that are actually talking about why they're there. And you're hearing their story. And I like that. I think that's a really good, nice touches there.
Yeah, I think it's a nice touch. We see what citizenship can actually mean.
Wasn't there one lady who said, I want to have a baby?
Yeah, that's right. She said she wanted to have babies, and it's easier to get a license if you're a citizen.
So there you go. So even to have children, you need to serve.
You need a license to have kids.
And it's easier to do it if you serve.
Easier if you've served.
Yeah, okay. But still, strange.
Very interesting. And the one lady, she said she wanted to go into politics, and you need to be a citizen for that. So that sort of started me off on a bit of a tangent intellectually here, philosophically. So fuck it, we're just going to do that now. So we know that the military took control of the society at some point in the past. In order to serve in the government in any role, you need to be a citizen. In order to be a citizen, you have to have served in the military. If you want to vote, you need to be a citizen, which means you need to have served. So, which means that the military controls everything because they control where you go when you volunteer for service. And all military training is indoctrination. Today in the 21st century, it's all indoctrination. So
it's another form of control.
It's another form of control. It's the form of control because, if you even want to participate, you have to go through the indoctrination system. If you want to
be brainwashed, anyways, to vote a certain way. So
that's right.
You go. Yeah, to maintain that control.
I thought that was really fascinating in there, and that's scary. That's a scary prospect.
Well, in the end, it's not that far from the truth in our life, in reality. There are many forms of control. It may not be to that degree, but there are many forms of control.
There are many forms of control, and depending on what part of the world you live in today, what those forms of control are and where they come from could be very different. In our country, obviously many forms of control. Generally speaking, it's a pretty liberal society that you and I live in right now. It's not homogenous just across coast to coast, of course. If you live in Russia, the systems of control are very different than systems of control in Canada versus, Italy or the UK. But like a place like this, where you can't exercise any influence unless you've already been indoctrinated by the people who do control things. Well, I don't know, maybe that's his commentary on Western society, is like you are under a system of control, which I think is a term for the Matrix. But yeah, again, there's a lot more here than, have we even seen an arachnid at this point other than the opening future sequence? No.
Not yet, but a lot to dig in, so it's good.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is not the movie that most people thought they were probably getting. Anyway, so as we move on, we see Johnny sending a sort of video diary to Carmen, and I thought that was pretty funny. It's a nice little chuckle there. Things are kind of fun and games and goofy. We're down in the trenches with them. And then was sort of our first look at Carmen at flight school. And we get the impression she's already a great pilot. She gets that chance to fly the Starship. She runs into pretty boy Xander, who's her flight instructor. And they kind of kick off. I was going to say undressing each other, but they were eyeball fucking each other in that scene there.
Oh, yeah.
When she's doing that. But that was kind of a fun little scene. We get to the laser tag scene with Dizzy and Johnny owning that course. There were some football moves.
I remember playing laser tag.
Yeah. When I play laser tag, I don't ever do a flip.
No. Hey, it was cool. It was good to see.
Of course, the laser beams aren't that painful when I go play laser tag, but it's been a few years, so maybe it's changed. So Johnny wins the role of squad leader there because of his sweet flip. Dizzy's a little pissed off. They're getting a little bit of animosity there. And then Carmen sends so Johnny gets his letter there from Carmen, the video letter, and she's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I love the spaceship more than you. So she kicks him to the curb, and that's the first thing. And Johnny admits to Ace that he joined up for her. He's kind of in poor spirits. We get to the live fire exercise the very next day. I get the impression that Johnny's not 100%. They're trying to break the time record. And Johnny tells that dude to take his helmet off, and he gets a bullet in the face. Which, again, some Paul Verhoeven dark humor with the excessive gore as the guy's head just explodes.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah, good shot there. Yeah, I thought
But the best part is right after that is cuts to that bird's eye view pulling back. You just hear the sergeant go, Johnny Rico, you are no longer sergeant.
Exactly.
Or no longer team leader. Yeah, it was so funny. Oh my God, I was laughing my ass off.
I like the dressing down he gets from, what's his name, from Breaking Bad there. I thought that was a good scene as well. He's like, did you give him permission to remove his helmet? He's like, yep. He's like, are you ready to repair the M3 tactical helmet, Rico? It's like, no. I really like that scene where he dresses him down there. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Then he gets the lashes.
Yeah, and then he gets the lashes, so they get that fucker on there with a straight-up Indiana Jones bullwhip. Just fuck him up. I like that touch there, the old-school whip. It really sort of, because they could have done something futuristic there, but it had that air, I think it lent an air of, this is a long-standing tradition by using that bullwhip, so that it felt like it had a little bit more weight to it there.
Yeah, what is he going to do? Whip him? Put him in the box? Or what? There's only so much you can do without being too excessive on your own people, right? Was he going to flay him?
Well, no, I think the lashes, that makes sense. I think there was a reference to taking lashes in the public square that Johnny's father had said earlier on in the movie. It has that old-timey, I don't know, old-timey, but it has that sort of barbaric tradition to it, but it feels like that fits really well in this world.
And I agree, yeah.
That would hurt like a mofo for sure. So this is kind of where things start to turn. Cuts back to Carmen on the ship. Late nights there, and she and Xander are making googly eyes at each other. They almost crash into a meteor, asteroid. I don't know what you call it when it's still in space. Asteroid, I think, still hurtling towards them, which had been presumably flung from the planet Bandathu towards Earth.
Doesn't it fuck up some other neighboring ships?
Not at this point. It fucks up their ship a little bit. They run into it a little. Destroys a piece of the ship, and then we cut back to Johnny, who's even though they weren't kicking him out, he's decided to resign. He's going to walk out, go back home. He's talking to his parents on the FaceTime, and Big Cloud comes over and all of a sudden cuts out. So he's walking down Washout Lane there and says he's about to leave. Obviously a commotion. And I really like this scene, actually. Everybody starts running. Clearly something's going on. And he doesn't even think. He just runs right back into, yells to his buddy there, like, what's going on? He's like, we're going to war.
This is one of the scenes from the trailer. That kind of, I remember, gets you into it, that you think it's going to be a hardcore war movie. Yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, really good scene. And played really well, I thought, because as soon as he says the line, we're going to war, and then Johnny's just like, he's not even thinking about leaving or anything that's happened. He's focused and he's in running with the rest of the troops, with the rest of the recruits there. Totally gets it into you there. And then we find out that Buenos Aires, which is where they're from, has been obliterated by said asteroid that had been flung from the far reaches of the Milky Way galaxy. So I'm not sure the physics on that exactly.
Oh, they just took a page from J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
He must have wrote that scene.
It was J.J. No, this scene inspired J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Star Trek 09 and The Force Awakens. It was this.
Fuck physics. Doesn't matter.
Did it. Fuck physics. Exactly. Yeah. This is the start.
It's moving like a turtle in one system, but it gets to the other place.
Somehow it reaches the far reaches of the galaxy in a couple of minutes, even though it's traveling at 2 meters per second. Yeah.
Yeah.
We run faster than this thing. So Buenos Aires is destroyed. Their families are presumably obliterated, and he tries to unresign. Actually, I kind of like the scene a little bit here. He wants to reconsider, and I liked how Clancy Brown played that scene there. He's like, is this your signature, Rico? He's like, yes, it is. Doesn't look like it to me. Tears it up, and he's back in the Army today. So here we go.
Yeah, par for the course. I've seen that in dozens of movies. It's okay.
We get another propaganda video here. So we see the ruins of Buenos Aires, and they cut to that angry guy. They show a dead dog under the rubble there, and the angry guy's like, the only good bug is a dead bug, and we get the, want to know more. So we get to the Sky Marshal Deans, the old guy there, who's obviously in charge of the military, which means he's in charge of everything. And he announces plans for the offensive there. His speech was a little bit chilling, where he says we need to ensure that human civilization, not insect, dominates this galaxy now and always. I thought it was an interesting choice of words there to say that we dominate the galaxy here instead of the insects. So again, just a little bit more detail in our little world here. I like the part of the video here where they got the kids stepping on all the cockroaches. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
And the mom cheering them on there. It was kind of creepy, I thought. Like, the mother is the one who's like really going nuts over it.
This is poking fun at how quickly humanity reacts to anything that can hurt them. They get scared, like this is paranoia. Yeah. This is us at its worst. Now we will just take it upon ourselves that anything similar to the enemy, we will generalize it and we will stomp it with our feet. Right? Yeah. That is humanity in a nutshell. That's what he's poking fun of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy to get people frightened, to use fear to mobilize the people. Yeah, and it's scary for sure. And we see that happen. It's happening.
Oh, yeah, through terrorism or through anything. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, one kid, dad gets killed by a deer, and then he'll be, the deer killer. Or the deer hunter.
Right. Yeah, he's the deer hunter. This time it's personal. Deer hunter, too.
That cow would eat you, Billy. You would. They all go to Bovine University, so it's all good.
Bovine University. All right, so we move on. Now, here's an interesting piece. So we're on board. So the invasion is about to commence. The troopers are on board their transport heading to Clendathu. This is where we get a first look at the video journalist from the start. And so he's reporting on the scene on the ship there, and he says that this is the first and only suggestion of this, that the bugs were provoked, perhaps, by intrusion of humans into their natural habitat, and that a live and let live policy is preferable to war. So this is the one and only suggestion that the humans were the aggressors and the bugs were just defending their territory.
But the funny thing is, by the end of the movie, don't you get that sense anyways?
I never did, no.
I kind of do. By the end of the movie, when they're torturing that brain bug, I kind of get the feeling that this is really all our fault anyways.
That is the impression I got when I watched it this time. And I do know from watching the commentary on the Blu-ray that was, in fact, their intention to make that not so overt, but that was what the suggestion they wanted you to take away from it.
Yeah.
And what was also really interesting is as soon as he says that, Rico's like, fuck that. He freaks out. He's like, well, I'm from Buenos Aires. I say kill them all, which is also from the trailer. So he's enraged at the suggestion. He doesn't know any of the facts. All he knows is that these bugs, these non-human creatures, killed his family, and he's gonna fuck up their shit. And that's it. For lack of a better term, he's drinking the Kool-Aid on this whole thing. He's been indoctrinated. He went from that idealistic, wide-eyed, young, good-looking kid to a killing machine now.
Yep.
Scary transition.
Humanity at its best.
Yeah. They get their tattoos together, which was, I don't know, whatever, a thing. And this is where finally...
tattoo machine, though.
Oh, that'd be sweet. Yeah. Very slick tattoo machine. We should get some tats, Harry. Podcast of Rare Antiquities tats on the bicep. We can do that pose towards the camera. I'm way too delicate for that shit. I can tell you that right now. So this is where Johnny runs into Carmen on the spaceship, first in-person meeting since leaving high school a year ago. And Xander rolls in. You get a little bit of jealousy. And they rumble for a little bit. Xander does the sweet suplex over the head. That was pretty good. Some elbows to the solar plexus. They get into it a little bit and break it up. So, a little testosterone going there.
This is typical military fare. The Marines or the Air Force or whichever division, they always have their grudges. And then you have the personal stakes here. But they're fun scenes for the movie. Yeah,
it's fun. It's a little bit of a respite from what's about to happen. So we finally get to the invasion. And I really love this whole thing. The alarms are going. They run to the drop ships. You got all of those battleships in orbit. I thought they did a really good job. I love the models. They did good CG work, good model work.
Really good effects.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
And I love the landing shots, too, as they land on the planet. I believe we see some landing shots there of all the shuttles coming in.
Yeah, we do. And thought of you, actually, because I remember when we watched Force Awakens, one of the early shots with the drop ships coming in that dropped the stormtroopers, and they did it seamlessly, where it kind of comes over and then drops down, and the stormtroopers come out, and they did a very similar thing here where the drop ships come down and it's in the sky and it does cut, but that was just an editing thing. It's still the same shot where it's coming out of the sky and one's getting destroyed off in the distance. It comes down and then the plane comes down. They all come running out onto the surface. Yeah, that whole scene was great. Well choreographed, well shot. The effects were great.
The music too. I think we should maybe touch base that the music, I think I really don't notice too much of the music until it gets to wartime. Then the soundtrack really kicks in. And one of the things I remember of this movie is I always admired the soundtrack.
It's got that militaristic feel to it. And you're right. I think it doesn't really kick in until this part of the film here. I believe the film was scored by Basil Polidorus, who did Conan the Barbarian, among other things. Gladiator as well, I believe, was another one of his credits.
Good scores, if that's the case.
Yeah, great scores. In fact, the trailer for Starship Troopers did feature some of the music from finished film, but sort of the main sort of exciting beats of the music from the trailer is from Polidorus' score from Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, wow.
Every trailer from the late 90s, early 2000s had that music in the trailer. You'll know this tune if you go look at the trailer. You're right. Very rousing, militaristic. I was on board with these guys here. It was great. I liked the speech from the lieutenant in the dropship there when they're going in. He's like, smash the entire area, kill everything with more than 2 legs. I love that scene. I thought it was great.
I love how he plays, you will survive if you remember your training, right?
Yeah. I really liked that line too. Yeah, that was great. I think he was the first one to bite the bullet. But
well, he didn't remember anything.
He didn't remember a goddamn thing, exactly. But yeah, the way he delivered that, it's like, remember your training, you will come back alive. I thought that was great. Excellent. But it's a giant clusterfuck. They get down there and they do okay for a bit. They got those big bugs shooting the plasma out into space there.
And they rocket the shit out of that one.
Yeah. Yeah, they have tactical nukes.
Yeah.
Those are cool weapons.
Little segue. Yep. What do you think of the bug designs in this movie?
Like, they were good, maybe not great. So let's take the warrior bugs, which is what we see the most of. And they seem to have sort of that hard carapace, basically all blades on all their limbs. There doesn't seem to be too much of a body, but there's some interesting design. If you look closely at some of them, they sort of have that Black Widow sort of red hourglass design on them, which was a neat detail. They were fearsome, but they weren't gross, and that limit the sort of the terror potential there. Because like one of the things about spiders, for me, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like any normal hot-blooded mammal has a healthy aversion to spiders.
Oh, yeah.
They're so goddamn ugly, and they look funny, and that's part of the fear. Like, they move strangely, like in real life, like spiders. They move strangely. They got all those fucking legs. They move faster than they look like they should be able to. They're ugly. They're gross. That's part of the terror, and these creatures don't emulate that. Like, they're hard, They move normally, and they don't scare me.
Yeah, they're not scary at all, but I'm wondering if that, again, maybe they weren't going down that route anyways.
Yeah, they might have been going more, because I think they wanted to make them more mobile looking. Like if you blow a spider up to a giant size, they don't look like they'd be too terribly quick. So I think that they were trying to make them leaner and meaner, more combat unit than making you scared. So I think that was a choice. They weren't trying to make the bugs scary.
I agree with you. I guess that's the only thing that I'd like to add to this. I like the fact you see different types of bugs. Like you talked about mobile infantry comparison, the crawlers who go in, and then you have the big bugs that look like bees that shoot out the plasma, and then you have like flying insect ones that you see later, and then you have the brain bug, and then you have that fucking giant beetle. I mean, these are all interesting designs, and I like the variety.
Yeah, I like the variety as well. They didn't just go with a homogenized, bug army. Yeah, they had different units, and and different roles. Exactly. Yeah, it's like a military unit. Like they have their tanks and their infantry and their air force and all of that stuff. Yeah, I like that.
Was that any of this in the book in terms of the creature design?
Not really. They're not described all that well in the book. They're referred to as the bugs and then the arachnids. I didn't get through the entire book recently for the show, but no, it's not something I think that they really touched on.
Well, then props to Verhoeven and the designers. Some really good ideas. Like, as you said, they made these bugs into an army. Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely did. Yeah, Phil Tippett was the creature designer.
Well, of course, he's the master.
Yeah, the master himself. Yeah. Watched a couple of interviews with him, and he was talking about how, like, reading the script, seeing what some of the bugs had to do. Because, the idea in the script is that we have sort of these different military units, and you had to figure out how to make it work. And the creature design, and, he's talking about his research into actual, like, insects and some of the things that they can do with beetles and things like that. Spitting their glands and different shit that they can mix together to, shoot acid and shit. Some crazy fucking things in the animal kingdom, that's for sure. But great creature design, I think, overall. So as the battle progresses, we definitely get the impression that the bugs are getting the upper hand here. Ace is not handling shit very well, and Johnny sort of steps up to try to save lives. So he manages to get his squad to fall back, but not before taking that fucking bug leg through his own leg there, and down he goes. The journalist is toast, and, things up in orbit are going all to shit. A bunch of ships are getting shot down by the bugs, and it's clearly not what they were expecting to see. So that was fun. Like, they're going there, should be just a standard bug hunt, gonna kill spiders with huge rifles, and everything goes upside down. I thought it was a great opening there, but it's a failure. Again, we get a propaganda video, 100,000 dead in 1 hour.
Yeah, that was so funny too.
Yeah. And you just get, again, some Paul Verhoeven gore, just the bodies strewn across the battlefield, blood and guts all over the place, limbs everywhere. Very Verhoeven. Very Verhoeven.
Very Verhoeven. And very effective. I loved it. You're horrified and you're laughing at the same time. And that's one of the things I love about Verhoeven.
Yes, he knows how to go over the top to make it both horrifying and hilarious at the same time. Very black. That's great. The Sky Marshal resigns, get a new Sky Marshal, and she kind of gives our first indication of the change of plans. We need to understand the bug. I like the debate. I don't know if you remember this part of the movie here where they have the debate between the two people. Do bugs think? And you've got those two experts arguing, and you got the one guy's like, insects with intelligence? I can't believe what I'm hearing. He's such a nerd with glasses and stuff. It's pretty funny. Anyway, but it looks like Johnny was killed in action. Carmen sees his name on the casualty list there, so she's not happy. But of course, he wakes up in the
time for Christmas to come again, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Come again, and again. Like I say, not a lot broken there.
No,
except her performance in fucking The World Is Not Enough. That was broke hard. But anyway, so Johnny wakes up in the back to tank. How'd you like the back to tank?
Yeah, that was awesome, and I love the machine that's repairing his thigh. That was great.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah,
for 97, that looked really good.
Yeah, it did look pretty good. They did a pretty good job with the effects overall, as we talked about before, but that looked pretty cool. That was good. So we're basically down to Johnny, Dizzy, and Ace as the only survivors from their unit, and they join the Roughnecks here. So they're the teacher from before, Michael Ironside, making a triumphant return with his sweet metal arm, and shit's getting real now.
That's where I'm wondering if Verhoeven should have done something fun. Did Richter actually survive? See, with the Richter.
Both arms should have been gone, yeah.
Yeah, both arms gone, and then he would have had, two metal arms and hands, and then you would start to wonder, okay, this is a possibility.
Lieutenant Richter.
He's out for blood.
They should have had Arnie playing this character. That would have been great.
Sergeant Candy. The fuck was that? Seriously. Sergeant Candy.
Oh boy. So they joined the Razchak Roughnecks. So a new plan. They're going down to another planet because they're going to clean out all of the planets now, just not the home world. And same situation. They get to battle some bugs there. I like these sequences here as they're making their way through the desert valley. They run into that huge beetle that can shoot fire, like melts that one lady's arm.
Oh, yeah. See, again, more great special effects. I mean, maybe not up to today's standards, but for then, really good.
Really look good. And I liked how Johnny jumps on its back and just blows a hole open into it and throws a grenade in there. I thought that was...
He has not let go of those football skills. They have saved his bacon. Everybody's...
Not just football skills, future football skills.
Yes.
Because, you want to put Tom Brady onto that shit, he'd have been fucked up.
Oh,
He would have been lit up in 2 seconds. Johnny Rico? No. He does flips and shit.
To be fair, those grenades, you can't deflate them, so...
That's true. Oh, nice one. That's a deep cut there, buddy. Good job.
Well, thank you.
Anyways, we get to the celebration at night here. So I kind of like the scene here where after they're done with the day's battle, they get the beer out. They give Jake Busey that weird plastic see-through neon violin.
Oh, what the fuck was that? Oh, my God. First of all, I guess it makes sense that a Busey would pick the violin and just start going off and randomly playing this weirdo instrument. You got beer, you got other shit there, but nope, I'm going for the violin.
I'm going for the futuristic violin.
I hated that scene. That makes me cringe. It's just we need to give Busey something to do.
I mean, they didn't have any bags of Coke on set, so they figured the violin was probably the too much, or...
We'll find out when the Buseys come after us, right?
Yeah, exactly, because you won't see them coming.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Johnny and Dizzy, Johnny pulls the reverse Spider-Man on Dizzy there with the shirt or whatever. I don't know what. Paul Verhoeven's sexual shit going on in Paul Verhoeven's mind there with that, but that's okay. But he comes in and he's like, okay, you got 15 minutes, make it 20. And okay, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but they're looking at each other and she's at the disbelief and he's like, oh, we can do it. I'm like, yeah, dude, you can do it. 20. Have you looked at her? You got 20 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
You got enough time to do that and fucking make yourself a sandwich afterwards.
Yes. It wouldn't take me 20 minutes. That's what I was dealing with. Nope.
Not even close. And that's just a compliment to Dina Meyer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, exactly. He's got plenty of time. Anyway, so they come across the military outpost. It's been overrun again. Lots of bodies, lots of gore. And they come across a general. And we get some idea that they're there for sort of some special mission.
Reconnaissance, right? They had some information on the bugs and that brain bug.
Yeah. But the bugs laid a trap and lured them there, and they had no choice. So they got to shore that up and await extraction. I like this battle scene. I thought it was pretty tense, where the bugs are bearing down on them.
Oh yeah,
and they got to wait for extraction there. I thought that was a lot of fun to watch that. They ramped up the tension here. I thought it was good. What did you think of how this battle scene played out?
Probably the best one in the entire movie. And I think this is where Richter gets it again, except he loses his legs instead of the arms.
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
Yeah.
Verhoeven hates fucking Michael Ironside. It's oh, you got your arms this time. Well, fuck you. No legs.
No legs. So he pulls them out, and I think Dizzy gets it at the end too, right? Before they're extracted. Is that here?
Yeah. So Razchak already got it. He gets his legs torn off. Johnny puts him down, and then as they're getting into the ship, it's kind of neat. There's two guys get roasted by that fire-breathing beetle.
Yep.
They get melted down. They blow that up as they're trying to escape. She gets a couple claws in the torso, and that's...
and that was a great death scene. I mean, I gotta say both Michael Ironside and Dina Meyer did a really good job. Especially Dina Meyer, you kind of feel, not because of her character build-up, but she really played this death scene well. She was scared. Frightened and pain, and I thought she did a great job here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I really read the fear off her as well. It wasn't a clean, heroic. Well, it was a heroic death, I guess, in the sense that she's trying to save her squad mates and everything like that. But yeah, you get the fear out of that performance. That was really, really well done.
Yeah, really well. Good. Really good performance. Yeah.
Sad to see her go because she was smoking hot, but such is the world here. So it turns out that they got rescued by none other than Xander and Carmen. So, she thinks he's dead, and this is sort of her first, she finds out that he's alive. They kind of convene back on Starship at the funeral, and this is where they're all reunited with Carl.
And this is where he's now first seen with his, Nazi-esque uniform.
Yeah.
I guess just, segue then, like, what are your thoughts with the brains here wearing, Gestapo uniforms such as that?
There's no mistaking who they're trying to make these guys out to be, right? The baddest of the bad guys. And what I thought was really interesting is if you've been paying attention to the movie at this point, you know it's a satire, you know that this is a fascist society, but all of that being the case, they're still the good guys, they're still the heroes that you're sort of supposed to be identifying because they're playing it straight. Like
they're playing it straight, but then is this now Verhoeven saying this is not the good side?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's so jarring because, like, I remember first seeing it and I'm on Rico's side, he seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
He's our hero. I'm on his side. And I'm sorry that, that Dizzy just died because she was the boss and they're the good guys. And here's Carl, who's supposed to be one of the good guys. But as soon as you see him, they use the costume and they're not the good guys. That's really jarring at this point in the movie. I'm crediting the movie to that. I don't know what you've been watching so far, but if you haven't got it to this point, they're not the good guys.
No, this is brilliantly done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something I wondered on the first time I watched it, I didn't get it until the end, like literally the last shot of the movie, when it's really on the nose. But I was like, raising my eyebrow at this point, saying, "Why is he dressed this way?" Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, something's not right. So well done here, which is great. So Johnny's put in command, and and Carl's now a dick also, which he has his little speech. He's like, well, I have to make decisions, send hundreds of people like you to their deaths every day. He's not even human, just a grunt. So, but what's interesting there is that Johnny accepts that. He's like, that's what the mobile infantry is good for. That's what we do. Anyways, the plan now, they got to capture the brain bug. So go back to that planet. Johnny's promoted to lieutenant, I think. He's the head trooper. Again, more battle, they get sent back down to the planet. Carmen's ship is shot down. They make it to the escape pod. They crash in that cavern there. And poor Xander.
Yeah, this scene here, every time, it just, gives me the willies.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, well, for me, whatever that mandible is that, pops into his head there, but it gets kind of transparent. You can see the brains getting, sucked through that tube.
Gives me the willies every time.
Yeah.
And then you see the narrow, empty face at the end, which is a really well done makeup. It must be a dummy. It's got to be at that point. I'm not sure.
It must be.
Great shots. But yeah, it gives me the willies every time. I always dread watching this scene because I know what I'm about to see. It's not like I look away. It just gives me the willies. It's just,
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's like, great. It's so good. They crash, and then she's about to buy it. Rico and company show up in the nick of time. Again, fight ensues. They blow everything up, and they make it out. The brain bug is captured by Zim, the original drill sergeant, and that's pretty much it. And then we get Carl walks up to the brain bug, puts his hand on it there to read his mind there. And this was scary. As he's like, it's afraid. They're afraid. And when I saw the movie the first time, I'm like, yeah, that's because we're going to fuck up these bugs. And now I'm like, they're afraid because these things from across the galaxy came for us.
Right.
And now there's nothing we can do about it.
Nope. They're fucked.
They're fucked.
Humanity once again has fucked over another species.
Yeah. It didn't do anything. Didn't do anything to them. This is the first time I watched it with that mindset, and man, that was chilling.
When I first watched it, this was the conclusion I had at the end. And it was more actually not even just this scene, the literal end of the movie when he jabs him and where. That sensor, and it's like, okay, now I know what the message is.
Yeah, that scene there, and that was really, because it's helpless. I mean, it's a gross creature, but it's not it's slow. It's there. It's helpless. And they're basically torturing it. This is a Nazi medical experiment right out of World War II that they're doing on this creature here. And
I know. But I mean, brilliant. It's a brilliant ending to the movie.
Yeah, great ending to the movie. Yeah, for sure. So that's Starship Troopers from top to bottom there. Shit, I don't really know where to start here, man. What are your kind of overall thoughts just from what we've watched and gone through so far?
Not to give away the final thoughts, there's a lot to chew on when you watch this movie if you really put your mind to it and look at all the layers, as we've talked about here, the satire, the revelation of humanity's role in all of this and who are the good guys and bad guys, what our society may become, that form of control we talked about. There's a lot of topics here to think about. I always thought the Starship Troopers was, and this is a tribute to Verhoeven, a lot of his movies have a lot of different meanings and subtext to it. Again, it's another enjoyable experience. And then to top it off, you got some good action. The acting, while not the best acting, it's not terrible acting. You know, we can laugh at all we want about a guy named Casper Van Dien, but I mean, it's a funny name, but it's not that he did a terrible job. I thought he did an okay job.
One other point I wanted to bring up. So I was watching an interview with Michael Ironside, and he, had familiarity, obviously, with Verhoeven, read the scripts, and asked him, like, what's your take on it? And Verhoeven basically, what he said to him was, if I stand up on a soapbox and I tell the far right, what we call the alt-right now, I guess, wave a finger at them and say, this is wrong, what you do is wrong, and all of this stuff, nobody would listen. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create their perfect fascist paradise for them.
This is what Verhoeven was telling Ironside?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to create their perfect paradise, the perfect fascist paradise, where everything works, everything appears to be so nice on the surface, but all it's good for is killing fucking bugs. That's what he said to him. So seeing, like, if we look back on the whole movie there, where their society seems to be a paradise on the surface, what are your thoughts on that society? Is this a bad place to live?
It is, but again, we don't know everything either, you and I.
Right.
But I can tell you that the masses are clueless about a lot of things. I'm also clueless about a lot of things. So I can imagine a society like that would be clueless about 99% of what's going around them anyways. Talked about that form of control. So it's not a good society at all.
Yeah.
In the end, if humanity ends up that way, it'll just be our downfall anyways. The first thing that truly challenged us would then, we would definitely just be done with very quickly.
I agree. On the surface, it seems like it's great, but I mean, take a look at what happens. Like, it's a meat grinder. They take these kids and they're sacrificed. They have no minds to put all of these people in this meat grinder, and it's fine. And whoever survives, great. You can be a citizen of our federation, but they're so indoctrinated that it doesn't matter. And another thing I thought was interesting, an observation I made, is that so many of the citizens that we see, because the citizens aren't in the military. Like, the citizens are the ones who've kind of retired from service. They're not actively serving anymore. Maybe they go back in. But we see, so Michael Ironside, right, missing his arm. We see that recruiting sergeant or lieutenant who's missing an arm, both legs.
Yep.
Even that science teacher, when they're dissecting the bugs, she's blind. You can see the acid burns on her face. All of these people who've gone through the service are disfigured or are mangled, right? They're not whole anymore. They're broken. They're their former selves. So I thought that was
Yet they're still brainwashed.
Still brainwashed. It's like the exact opposite of Star Trek's vision of the future, if you will, right? Almost exactly the opposite, which is really interesting. I mean, you don't get that type of view of the future and it being portrayed as the norm. I mean, usually if you get a dystopic future, whether it's the Hunger Games, I hate to bring that up because I'm not a fan. If anybody's seen the film Equilibrium with Christian Bale, I mean, it's like a 1984 type of thing where the system, the control, but we always sort of see it from the perspective of the people who are sort of the victims of that society underneath who want to resist. And this, we don't see it from that perspective. We see it from the perspective of the privileged white kids, basically. And that's a really unique perspective. That's part of what makes it a really effective satire on the original source material, is that we kind of don't see the counterpoint. The counterpoint to this society is all underneath the surface. We have to infer it.
Yeah, exactly. You're just getting the rich kid's point of view and their parents. Nothing is wrong. Let's go take a vacation.
Yeah. I mean, that was the main discussion point, I think, there. Let's talk about the satire. Is there any other points you want to bring up before we bring up our final thoughts on the film?
I think we covered it for the most part. Again, a lot to dig in if you watch this movie. And its rewatchability is just increased over the years.
Well, let's do final thoughts, Harry. And would you recommend this film, and is it a rare antiquity?
Oh, I would recommend this film to anybody who would enjoy watching a good movie. Not many people do watch a good movie or like watching good movies. But yeah, there's a lot to dig in here, as we talked about. It's a great movie, all in all. I recommend it highly. I think it's a rare antiquity. One of Paul Verhoeven's best movies. Not the best, but one of the best. Definite rare antiquity for me.
Awesome. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, I absolutely recommend this film. It's got so much on every time you watch it. There's something more to pull out of this film. It's so wonderfully layered. I mean, for a film called Starship Troopers about Space Marines shooting alien fighters. I mean, they pack so much into this. Highly recommend it. And absolutely, it's a rare antiquity. They do not make them like this anymore. I mean, a big budget sci-fi action satire. Come on. This might be the only one. I mean, other than like RoboCop and Total Recall being less of a satire, more of a straight sci-fi. I mean, shit. They just don't exist. You know?
That's true.
That's Starship Troopers. Harry, thanks for doing the show. What do you have in store for us for next time?
Give me 1 minute. Because I completely forgot. I know what it is. I'm just getting the details on my phone. I know what I want to choose. All right. So next time we will look at Sidney Lumet's 1976 black comedy. I think it's a black comedy at least. So it's a drama. I would say more of a drama comedy. Network. Yes. Have you ever seen it?
No, I have not.
Very good movie.
Okay.
But I thought it would be interesting to discuss. I think there's a lot to dig into that movie, just like this one. Different genre. I think you'll enjoy pulling the weeds out of that one.
1976. Network.
1976.
Okay.
Network.
Yeah, no, not familiar with this one at all.
It'll be a doozy.
Awesome.
All right,
man. That was a lot of fun, and hopefully it won't take us so long to get around to the next one. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Cheers.
All right.